This weekend has been very good for us football fans, hasn't it? Unless, you're the Steelers, and quite frankly, the world is laughing at you. They're all going to laugh at you. Or, you're Ohio State, and they're all going to laugh at you. They're all going to laugh at you. I'm laughing at you. Well, also because of this, Tampa Bay Buccaneers win a playoff game. I'm a happy guy. Yes, I know they're playing the Saints, but until then, I'll be a happy fan until that time comes. Or maybe it doesn't come. Who knows? Any given Sunday. But today we're going to talk about one particular man. A great man. A Heisman Trophy man. Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama, has officially won the Heisman Trophy. Duh. But one thing I want to come across because of his success is, one, he's a wide receiver, so yay, finally! But another question I want to address to the football fans out there and the football analysts out there and just, people who came across my channel. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. I'm Cortez and I'm a critic. Is it weird that the NFL MVP and the Heisman Trophy both represent the best player in that sport just so happens to be mainly the quarterbacks and running backs of its respective leagues? Is that really saying they're the best player since they play one side of the ball, and when a defensive player does great, it's more like, nitpick, well, he only played the defensive line, well, he doesn't really tackle, they nitpick them like crazy, but when it comes to offense, it's like, how many yards, how many touchdowns, and does the team win? So, I'm going to give credit to Devontae Smith because rightfully deserved and make a statement that may come back to bite me in the ass. Devontae Smith is the best wide receiver to ever win the Heisman and probably ever will. That means some of you kids that are in elementary school and you play wide receiver, Devontae Smith has put the bar so high, you need a step ladder and probably a crane to get that high up. I understand that when wide receivers have great numbers, a lot of time they go to the quarterback. So it's kind of like, well, it's 60% you and 40% your quarterback. And since your quarterback has to pass the ball to like 6 other players, organize the offense, look good on JQ magazines and date supermodels, of course he gets the credit and you wide receivers don't. Now in college football, I really feel like the running backs have a major claim in the Heisman Trophy when it comes to the voting system. We have seen a lot more running backs literally carry the team on their back to the point that their quarterbacks, all they have to do is not screw up. And they're in the playoffs, or at least to a bowl game, division title, what have you. Conference title, pardon. So it just feels that running backs have a high stake too. But let's go to the NFL because the NFL has clearly for years been running back, quarterback, quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, quarterback, running back, quarterback, not your receiver, not a receiver. I've looked, I have it right here on that. I mean, here's an interesting stat here. In 1986, there was a defensive NFL MVP, and he wasn't a defensive back or did punt returns. It was Lawrence Taylor. The demon from the Giants defensive corps, outside right linebacker Lawrence Taylor was named NFL MVP. Probably because he killed all the other quarterbacks and running backs, so therefore there was no competition. That or he intimidated the hell out of the voting committee. But you think that is crazy? Let's go just a few years back, and I mean from 86 to 82, when a kicker was named the NFL MVP. His name is Mark Mosley from the Washington former Redskins. I believe 82 was the year of the strike. Is that correct? The year of the strike or strike? But either way, he was so valuable, I think it makes sense to think that he was the reason why, because it was during the strike and the season was condensed and a lot of the players were really not even XFL worthy. 2001 or 2020, pick which one. Not worthy. But yeah, and since then it's been quarterbacks: Peyton Manning, Adrian Peterson, Tom Brady, Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, Steve McNair, Peyton Manning again, Rich Gannon, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner again, Terrell Davis, Barry Sanders, Brett Favre, Steve Young, Emmitt Smith, Steve Young, Truman Thomas, Joe Montana. Boomer Esiason won it. And of course John Elway. And of course Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. And this year, Well, hell, this year you can make the argument that it's the same thing. Either it's Derrick Henry or Rodgers, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and for some people way in the back are saying, what about Tom Brady? He threw for 40 touchdowns and he's 43. Come on, man. And that guy has been secretly and quietly removed from the conversation. But the NFL is so, the NFL has let a kicker and a defensive player officially do it. That's not a special teams contributor. The Heisman has been surprisingly a bit more critical when it comes to, best college player. We all heard the story. And I'm sure Desmond Howard is probably annoyed as all hell to hear, hey Desmond, Devontae Smith is the first wide receiver to win the Heisman since you did. To the point where I feel like Desmond Howard is just like saying, dude, my cheeks hurt for smiling too much. Can you guys ask me another question? Now, what I'm about to say right now, after doing research for this video, I have found some, not evidence as incriminating, but evidence as, that is interesting. And I took some notes. In 1991, Desmond Howard's stats are as follows. Wide receiver, 62 receptions, 985 yards, averaging close to 16 yards a carry, 15.9, give him that 0.1%, you bastards, and 19 touchdowns. Devontae Smith had similar stats in the touchdown department, but we'll get to his stats at the end as a surprise to remind you all. Also, he helped contributed 13 rushing attempts for 180 yards, averaging 13.8 and 2 touchdowns. So he has helped contributed. But the major factor I feel like for a lot of wide receivers, especially those that are going to college right now, is that not just to be considered a Heisman Trophy candidate, but to be a major contributing factor when it comes, because you're auditioning for the NFL in the next 3 years. So, is special teams, punt returns, and kickoff returns. This all took place in the 91 year. I'm talking about these stats. Desmond Howard had 20 punt returns for 282 yards, 14.1 and 1 touchdown. His kickoff returns, he had 15 of those for 412 and 27.5 average, and of course 1 touchdown. 27.5. Now, just spitballing here using today's stats. Those kickers kick from the 30. That's about 70 yards. Let's just be frank, 70 yards. If it does not go all the way in the end zone, which granted we don't know how many great kickers had that booming leg back then, but let's just, for the sake of argument, with 25 yards or 30 yards, whatever how far it is, let's just put 70 yards. Nearly half of those yards are brought back on an average for Desmond Howard. So talk about field position. And listen to this, punt return, 14.1 average. What's the average punter that's considered good? 50 yards? Let's just say 50 yards. Hell, nearly a quarter of that is returned by Desmond Howard, setting up your offense in great field position, especially if that team has to punt from inside their own end zone. Desmond Howard sets you up beautifully. But this is all great number for stats, but looking at all the Heisman Trophy candidates, Desmond had a grand total of first place votes, 640. Very impressive. Blow him out of the water. Guess what the second place nominee had in total of first place votes? Okay, you're not gonna get it. 19 votes in first place votes. 6-4 to 19. That is like, wow. That is like, why should we did not want to give those 19 votes to him because we felt like it was already overwhelming. But then looking at the players that did, one was Ty Demeter, who played at BYU, who won the Heisman back in 1990. So the year before he won it, here he was ranked 3rd in the Heisman for the 91 season. And maybe it's a fear of, if you won the Heisman before, to win it again, you have to either surpass your numbers or, at least get roughly similar. I think probably more in the beginning, you have to surpass your numbers and probably have a way better season. He played at BYU. Sometimes schools could be viewed as a factor in some people's stats. Also winning programs. There's some people that have stats that don't have really a very strong winning program or even national championship contender, but whatever, it happens. So that's a factor. But then let's move a few years to another Michigan alumni in Charles Woodson, the first defensive player to win the Heisman. Now I've heard the debate. You heard the debate. I've heard the debate. Peyton Manning should have won the Heisman. Okay. But, as I will speak for the defense of Charles Woodson, defensive back out of the great University of Michigan, go Big Blue. Don't know why I put a Southern draw, but I feel like it's a stereotype and I'm going to go with it. Charles Woodson. Oh, by the way, Ryan Leaf was there. Mr. Don't talk to me! I'm content! Very angry people person, Ryan Leaf, who yelled at a reporter in San Diego. Oh, boy. And, of course, this other guy, Randy Moss. Before we got Charles Woodson, this is Randy Moss's stat during that time of the Heisman. He was one of the 4. 90 receptions, over 1,600 yards, nearly 1,650. 25 touchdowns. And very similar to how Josh Allen is viewed as, but he played in Wyoming. Huh? Randy Moss played at Marshall. Does that play a factor? Maybe. Maybe people just want to vote for Randy Moss because of his, behavioral issues when he went to college. How he went to Florida State initially, then he went to Marshall, and how they just feel like that glorified. Conspiracies everywhere. You put your in. My thought is that maybe Marshall wasn't that good, or for the argument here, the same argument that I will give to Peyton Manning is that Charles Woodson's stats are as follows. Defensively, he had 7 interceptions for 7 yards, averaging 1 yard. Okay, I think maybe, I have not seen the highlights, but part of the interception were probably like he was contesting with the receiver and made the interception, and he got tackled right away, or he caught interception going out of bounds, and his momentum carried him out of bounds, whatever. But yeah, he had that. Now looking into Charles Woodson's, other stat, because that's just defense. He contributed on offense as well. He had 2 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. Now, in detail for his receiving yards in the 97 season, he had 11 receptions, 231, averaging 21 yards a play. Dang. He only had 3 rushing attempts for 15 yards, 5 yards a carry, which, yeah, in front of those only 3 carries, you're like, oh, 5 yards a carry. That's not as glamorous if you had like 30 carries and average 5 yards a carry. That's a little bit more significant value. More like, oh, wow, that's impressive. But overall, he helped out with 14 plays, 246 yards, averaging 17.6 yards a play, and 3 touchdowns. Also, he had a punt return touchdown as well. He actually had no kickoff return stats that year. He had 33 punts for 283 yards, averaging a little over 8.6, and a touchdown. Clearly, he's a very contributing factor on special teams. So, in defense for Charles Woodson, to Randy Moss, Peyton Manning, even Ryan Leaf, because we all know what happened to him in the NFL, Charles Woodson has helped in all 3 aspects of football and was successful. He scored points, he averaged a good stat chart on the offensive side as a skill player. We have seen that today. We're seeing defensive players come out on offense and use their receiving and speed skills, even though they go to the NFL and just focus on defense because college football is more experimental. And hell, we even seen Deion Sanders being used in the offense in time in his career, so not a big, surprise there. Then again, we've seen defensive linemen play tight end. We've seen a linebacker. We've seen it this year. But in college football, mainly, that was probably more of an experiment just to get a change of pace. His special teams effect was phenomenal, setting up the field position for the offense. Not to mention 7 interceptions. Heck, you get 5 in college football. They're already looking at you saying, put his name on the list as potential Heisman Trophy candidate or at least Defensive Player of the Year. Just put a name down there. 7 interceptions is impressive. Even players in the NFL today get 7 interceptions in a season is considered, A+ quality. So he scored touchdowns, set up touchdowns, returned touchdowns, and stopped. Let's just say he stopped 7 touchdowns with his interception skills. As much you want to say, yeah, Peyton Manning threw for 3,800 yards, 36 touchdowns in Tennessee, and of course Ryan Leaf did 33 touchdowns for 3,600 yards himself at Washington State. I don't see Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning playing defense or returning punts or even kicking field goals. So yeah, I can see the argument for Peyton Manning, maybe the argument for Randy Moss, but Charles Woodson played all 3 levels of football, and I just feel it make him more valuable. He succeeded when it counts, and he scored points, and his average was great, which I feel like that's a big factor when it comes to yards. How much of an average, what his completed percentage is always being viewed at. So Charles Woodson defense, I will say, yes, he deserves to be the Heisman for that year for what he has done on the field. But going back to Desmond Howard, because that's the big thing that Desmond Howard's been harassed apparently when Devontae Smith won it, was what he's wanted since you as a wide receiver. Desmond Howard's stats in the NFL, of course, did not dictate well, but I think you can ask any football player, any football fan, and they would do the same. I'd rather be statistically terrible in my position in the NFL, but I'll have won the Heisman, won the Super Bowl, and was on the ESPN Sports Illustrated, front cover as Super Bowl MVP Desmond Howard. I would take all those trophies and all those achievements over being statistically a great receiver or even a B+ receiver. I would take that, and I think a lot of us would too. We got the ring, we got the MVP, we won the Heisman. And his career has been successful as an analyst and a broadcaster and a great person when it comes to football, especially when it comes to Michigan football and, of course, NFL and college too. So I think, in the end, I think Desmond Howard wins. Desmond Howard wins in that go. Will he be a Hall of Famer? Probably not. But I think we all would agree we would trade, statistically great success for winning the Heisman, being Super Bowl champion, and MVP. I mean, Cam was MVP in the NFL and won the Super Bowl. No, he didn't win the Super Bowl. Remember, he won the national championship and then he won. So see, yeah, some players would do it, but he did as a wide receiver, so it was more like, hee, I break the curve. Now to Devontae Smith. Before the Heisman was announced, he had 98 receptions, so pretty much he just needed 2 more catches, probably a fourth quarter somewhere that he could have caught those. 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15.4 average. He had a punt return and a rushing touchdown as well. Ending the season with 117, nearly little 1,800 yard, mainly, 1,856 yards we averaged, 15.9, and 23 touchdowns. Not to mention 215 yards and 3 touchdowns and 12 receptions. In the first half of tour, his fingers went and broke off, and he still was a clear factor. Here's my conspiracy. Now, I support all receivers. Represent the catches, guys. Represent the catch. But I think Kyle Trask was destined to win this Heisman. But here's my conspiracy. January 5th was the Heisman Trophy ceremony to make the announcement. The last bowl game was on January 6th. That means there's only one game left, and that was on the 11th for Ohio State, Alabama. Lawrence played for Clemson. He got destroyed by Ohio State. He fumbled a couple of times and he wasn't able to carry his team. And Lawrence's stats was 22 touchdowns, only not even 3,000 yards. I think Annette really impacted with the rushing attack being more successful than Lawrence had to be. I'm feeling that could be a factor. Mac Jones, 3,700 yards, 32 touchdowns, 76.4% completion rating. Cool, but then you realize that Devontae Smith had 1,500 of those yards, and out of your 32, 17 belong to me. That means more than half your touchdowns belong to me. I am the captain now. It just feels that, yes, the quarterback gets credit, but it's hard to take you. If you threw, maybe 4,000 yards, maybe, but almost a good a third of your stats belong to him, so kudos on you. But the conspiracy is that Kyle Trask had 43 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, over 4,000 yards, and was just slightly under 70% complete with 69.6. But when you play, those that saw the Cotton Bowl between Oklahoma and how Oklahoma intercepted it, dominated. Spencer Rattler was a better quarterback statistically than Trask. Trask got benched twice in the game, was clearly blown out. And I think because of his performance in the Cotton Bowl, that ultimately kicked him out of the running, and the rest became pretty much between, do we give Lawrence the Heisman based on default, even though we want to say it's based on the season, but it's based on career, we're thinking like that, come on, we do. Or it's about Mac Jones, but then again, half of his stats belong to Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith has shown numbers that we've not seen pretty much since Randy Moss, who had 90 receptions, mind you, 1,600 yards, and 25 touchdowns. Probably didn't have that many games that Devontae Smith had to make those stats go up. So my conspiracy is that I feel like it was Kyle Trask to lose, but because of his poor performance and getting benched during that game, it felt very much so that it was either Mac Jones or Devontae Smith, even though Lawrence was technically number 2. Lawrence was based on was a Colt McCoy ploy, Colt McCoy, for all his time, was always in the Heisman, but lost to Tim Tebow and to Sam Bradford. And the year he was trying to do it, he lost it again. And he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And that's what Trevor Lawrence's career as a Heisman Trophy candidate will be. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And he has the hair to be a beautiful bride. Yes, I made a joke that might be insulting. Please do demonetize me. But in the end, looking at all this, Devontae Smith has proven statistically and professionally just that it is really hard to be a great wide receiver in this league. Randy Moss had superior numbers in the touchdown department and the receiving department, not the much receptions, but Randy Moss was probably number 3 or even 4th place for reasons that could be more than just, playing on the field. But in the end, Devontae Smith has put the bar so high up that it could be, 20 years, maybe more, until someone says, hey, Devontae Smith, it's been a while since someone won the Heisman since you did. So, but in the end, it feels that the Heisman is clearly offensive-based. Same with the NFL MVP. It's clearly offensive-based. Heck, the quarterbacks and running backs that are going in both the NFL and college football next season already have a 3 to 5% head start over everyone else. And some of it are not even in the running to the point it becomes almost a run against your other teammates. The quarterback, running back, receivers are fighting with each other to find out who's going to win the Heisman. And the only way they're going to get a defensive player is if he does punt returns or he gets 10 interceptions, return 10 for touchdown. That might be, but that's such a high stretch of a demand for a defensive player. And the NFL is clearly running back and quarterback. It's clearly running back by quarterback. And the running back that have succeeded that won the NFL MVP, Adrian Peterson, Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson, all because they literally carried their team into the playoffs and their quarterback, regardless who they were, just did enough not to screw it up for them. And that's the sad truth. The Heisman is supposed to represent the best player, same with the NFL represent the player, but it feels like the best player has to be the quarterback or running back or your team has no vote. What do I want it to be? I want a tight end, damn it. I want to see the first Heisman Trophy winner be a tight end. Can I get that? Will I get that? I'm looking here. I'm in the 90s and running backs. Johnny Rodgers, 72, was a running back receiver. Yeah, none. There's none. So, yeah, Devontae Smith is worthy of the Heisman. Yes, he is. Do I feel like maybe we need to take the NFL MVP and the Heisman Trophy winner maybe just a little bit, not as serious, because knowing for the fact that nearly 10% of the positions are being viewed as it, while one side of the football is pretty much being ignored. But we say defense wins championship. We mean that as a team. But if your quarterback sucks in the big game, like some quarterbacks did this year, then it's really your fault, the quarterback, while the rest of the team is considered, well, we go down with the ship. Because our leader, our quarterback, failed us. Pick the narrative that fits right for you based on the situation. That is football in a nutshell, no matter what level of football it is. In the end, Devontae Smith, congratulations. I hope he goes to Miami to team up with Tua if the Deshaun Watson rumor does not happen, because I think that'd be kind of awesome. Not to mention Tua and Devontae hooked up for the national championship game against Georgia in overtime. What a historical event to have Tua and Devontae Smith together. I'm going crazy. But I already been viewed as crazy, so whatever. So until next time, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you all very much for watching.